back, Thresholds and Transits. My name is Megan. Today we are talking about April 2026 for Scorpio rising. Scorpio rising, my brothers and sisters, it's nice to be with you. Crazy couple of months, huh? So, in the Thema Mundi, Scorpio is in the fifth house, the house of creativity and pleasure and generative depth. Mars rules here, so we are in its domicile. Scorpio rising people experience the self as an instrument of depth and transformation. We tend to know how things end before they even begin. The wound that follows this placement is that this knowing has been called dangerous and pathological and too much. So, welcome back. My name is Megan. I am an astrology student, and as I learn things, I share them with you. And so, I'm thrilled that you are here because that means that I get to learn more. If you like how I work and you want to know more, you can go to my website, meganriley.eu. That's a new website, and it has all sorts of offers on it with donation-based readings for astrological transits and what's happening with the sky right now. Or if you're looking for a good time for something, we can look for that too. And I also have sliding fee based natal readings, which is a natal reading is what was happening in the sky the moment you took your first breath. And I also have intuitive readings and then a membership if you're interested in that. But I love what I'm doing and I love to be able to do it with you, especially you Scorpios. Okay, so this month begins a deep excavation of foundation, ancestral, domestic, and psychological. It also involves our ruling planet coming home to our sixth house and meeting Saturn there. The body and the labor are under significant pressure. So let's look at what's happening. The most significant slow transit this month for us is Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius in our fourth house, stationing retrograde in late April. So the fourth house is the house of home and roots and private life and family of origin. Pluto has been in our fourth house since 2024, and the work is doing here is excavation. We're not remodeling, we're not redecorating, we're excavating. The structures that were laid down before we were old enough to choose, the emotional inheritance from our families and the dynamics that we absorbed before we had language for them, the patterns that got wired into our nervous system as the price of belonging. The retrograde station makes this all interior. It's all going inwards. So what is the ancestral wound that you're carrying this month and this lifetime? What was laid down in the private life of our families that is still running the behavior in the present? Sylvia Brinton Perrera writes in The Descent to the Goddess that the Inanna descent is not a descent into destruction. It's a descent into stripping, the removal of what never truly was yours, what was placed on us by systems and families and histories that all had their own agendas. What comes back up from the fourth house excavation really does belong. So what stays below stays, and what returns, returns. Juno is in Aquarius conjunct Pluto in the fourth house all month. So the domestic agreement, the family contract, the structure of our private life, these are under Plutonic pressure. What arrangement in the home or family life was built on implicit terms that were never quite equitable? Juno in the fourth is the demand for equality in the private sphere. Pluto is making that demand structural and non-negotiable. Then Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries, and Mars ingressing into Aries on April 12th are all moving through our sixth house, the house of health and labor and the daily body. Mars is our traditional ruler. Mars comes home to Aries, our sixth house, on April 12th. And Mars at home is strong and direct. But it's meeting Saturn, which structures and limits, and then Neptune, which dissolves and fogs. So even though it's at home, it's being pressed towards discipline and dissolved into uncertainty in this visit. And then on April 19th, Mars and Saturn reach their conjunction in Aries in our sixth house. The question this conjunction holds for our body, what our daily system is actually costing us. What routine, what labor structure, what health protocol has become a form of self-punishment, wearing the costume of discipline. Chiron, 25 to 27 degrees of Aries, is also in our 6th. The wound in the body and in labor. The place where the self has been put to work in ways that were not sustaining. Where the labor was extracted before you knew what extraction meant. Then Jupiter between 16 and 18 degrees this month in Cancer, in our 9th house, the house of philosophy and higher learning and travel and belief. The greater benefic in the house of meaning in its exaltation. This is genuinely positive for finding what we actually believe. Coming to a philosophy that comes from our own experience and our own depth, rather than experience and depth that we're handed. This is a great period to seek out teachers and texts and travel that expands the container of how you understand the world. Then Uranus ingresses into Gemini on April 26th, entering our 8th house. Phew, out of the 7th house. Oh my goodness. This begins a 7-year transit of the house of shared resources, psychological depth, and the taboo. I'm looking forward to this as opposed to this 7th house. The 8th house, Uranus transit, is the great revealer. Secret surface, inheritances, financial and psychological come forward suddenly. Buried material that you've been keeping at arm's length starts finding its way to the surface through channels that you did not anticipate. Venus moves through Taurus in your 7th house through most of April, bringing warmth and ease to the partnership sphere before entering Gemini and the 8th in late April. So the warmth of partnership moves into the depth of what is shared. And then for the goddesses, Vesta in Pisces in our 5th house is the sacred flame in the territory of creativity and pleasure. So what are you keeping holy in the creative and erotic sphere, especially now that Saturn is finally gone? What flame are you tending that no one else knows about? This is the devotion that belongs entirely to you. There's nothing performed about it, just maintained. Then we have Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius in our 2nd house, and this is the refusal around money and resources, the financial autonomy that was exiled, the demand for material self-determination that was suppressed. What's been rewritten this year in terms of your resources? Now, questions to hold for the month. First, Pluto is stationing in our 4th house. What is the ancestral wound that we are carrying? What was laid down in the private life of our families that's still running behavior now? Second, Saturn, Neptune, and Mars are all in our 6th house. So what is the body asking us to stop doing? Where has the daily routine become self-punishment dressed as discipline? Third, Chiron in the 6th. What labor wounded you? What does healing look like in the daily body? Not performing for anyone, but the real body. Fourth, Jupiter is in our 9th house. What do you believe in? Not what you were taught, not what you adopted, but what have you arrived at through your own depth and experience? And fifth, Uranus is entering our 8th house in late April. What is about to surface from shared resources, inheritances, or psychological depth that you have been keeping at arm's length? So that's it, dear Scorpio risings. We descend not to be destroyed. We descend to be stripped of what was never ours. We know descent so well. This is something that we do for fun on a Saturday. So we've got this. What remains is worth keeping, and I will see you in the next one.